Oh, yes, so that it'll be available. We'll make sure that the town gets a copy of it and can post the full meeting after the fact. For anybody online, we are going to mute all online attendees at the moment. If you have a question to ask, you can either hit *6 on the phone or unmute yourself when the time comes.
Okay.
Thanks, Ed.
So let me start off by simply saying this is a public information meeting. Nothing is written in stone at this point in time. However, in a process of looking at the road, Elm Street, which we want to utilize LoTCIP, that's local transportation capital improvement funding to rebuild. Okay, we've done that before with Hickory Hill, which means essentially we, the town, must engineer it, but then the construction money will all come from Hickory Hill. We're doing that, from state government. Obviously, it's a preferred way for us to do that. This road, not all roads, by the way, are eligible, but this one is. Therefore, we're going to utilize that funding to do this project. So the project for the road itself, which would be a road rebuild, sidewalks, and some of the infrastructure underneath, storm sewers, sanitary sewers, that kind of thing, whatever is necessary to make it an A1 road, and the sidewalks are part of the original plan. However, we also have a greenway that is being planned right now as well, right? And I'll allow everybody to talk about that a little bit more. And it makes sense for us to incorporate whatever aspect of the greenway that would be part of the greenway into this plan as well. Because A, we can get LoTCIP funding to do it instead of finding other funding. And B, why create more than one disturbance? Let's do it. We're going to do it with one time instead of going back and taking several ways. It just makes sense. I think. So I'm about to turn this all over. Understand that what we have here is we have councils of government staff. This is Rich Donovan. This is Aaron Buttress, Kevin Ellis, Karen is here somewhere. Karen, where are you? There you go. And then the other two gentlemen over there are the engineers that are involved in the project from Pine and Bond, where we have utilized quite extensively here in the town of Thomaston. And that's Chris Dubuque and Alfred May. Okay, so I'm about to turn it over to them. Understand, once again, nothing is written in stone here. This is all conceptual. This is what we want to present to you folks to see where you are with this. We certainly want you to be comfortable with the project and support it. And before we move forward with that LoTCIP application, which is going to be somewhat specific, okay, we need to know that the project is going to be acceptable to the neighborhood mostly that it's impacting, and to others as well who have a desire to have a greenway. And I think maybe you support that concept, maybe you don't. But anyways, a greenway coming from Thomaston, which is something that we've been really trying to implement for quite a few years. So with that said, I will turn this over. Understand there'll be some Q&A at the end of it all. And we want to hear from you, purpose of this meeting and stuff like that. Rich.
Thank you. Yes, so like First Selectman Bone said, I'm Rich Donovan. I'm the Director of Transportation Planning with the Naugatuck+Valley Council of Governments. For anybody who doesn't know, we are staff that represents or work for the 19 elected officials of our region. We come from up here in Thomaston. We include Bristol down to Shelton, and then Cheshire over to Southbury. And so, you know, we're here. We help administer the LoTCIP program, the state money for these reconstruction programs, as well as Aaron and his team have been leading up the efforts for the Naugatuck River Greenway. There he goes. So just a kind of a quick run through of what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to let Ty and Bond discuss the existing conditions and the need for reconstruction of Elm Street. I think anybody who's been out there knows that there's certainly some condition issues to address, and so they'll go through that and discuss the purpose and need of this particular project. I'm going to give Aaron a chance to go through and talk about the kind of the broader vision for the Naugatuck River Greenway and how it plays into this individual project. And then we're going to go through and just talk about a concept for what Elm Street might look like. Like the first selectman said, right, this is all very conceptual. These are drawings made effectively in paint. And so there's lots of opportunity for these to change over the next, over the design period on this. And that's why we're here tonight. We want to get feedback from all of you as to what this might look like. So that it's a project that you all support and will enjoy and will bring value to the town as well as to the residents of Elm Street itself. And we've already gone through, we've introduced our project team here, but it's a combination of the town working with us as the Council of Governments and Ty and Bond as the engineering firm. Right, so we're all looking at the same thing. This is the area we're talking about. So it is the full length of Elm Street from East Main Street in the north down to South Main Street, kind of at the south end of it. And so, you know, I think it's important we understand the kind of the details, the funding behind this. Right, again, like the first selectman said, the design will be on the town. This is something that there's a firm already in place to take care of, and we'll put a concept together for and do the full engineering work. But then 100% of the construction dollars are coming from the state through the LoTCIP program. LoTCIP is just about 10 years old. There are nine councils of government across the state, 8 equivalents to us, who help administer this program with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. Our region gets just about $10 million a year to allocate to municipalities for these kinds of projects. And, you know, right, it's really intended to be a significant improvement. You know, it is a capital improvement program. It's designed to take on big projects and really build something that will be, you know, consequential for towns. And so we're excited to be working here with Thomaston on this project. We think this is going to go a long way towards not only making the condition better out on Elm Street, but also making a safe and comfortable connection for the Naugatuck River Greenway and helping to, you know, building something that's really going to be a destination and a place people want to be, making it comfortable for people to walk and bike down Elm Street. You know, when we talk about why we're here, right, that really it comes down to that. It is increasingly, you know, we are understanding that roads are for everybody, not just for cars. And so we want to look at this as an opportunity to build a project that is going to be beneficial for everybody who might use Elm Street, whether that be somebody driving or somebody walking or using a micromobility device like a bicycle. But we also want to make sure that the road is safe. And, you know, we know 2022 was one of the deadliest years in Connecticut's history on our roadways. 23 is on track to be just as bad. And so in recent years, since the project on Main Street, we know that Elm Street's getting used as a cut through more. We know that speeds are up. The speeds are up everywhere. And so this is an opportunity for us to talk about some traffic calming elements as well. Right, we want to keep people driving in the places they're supposed to be driving. We want them driving in the safest manner possible. And the last thing anybody wants in front of their house is somebody driving too fast or not paying attention to what they're doing. And so those are all parts of this project, in addition to just the reconstruction of what's out there. And why we want to take this and look at it as an opportunity for something significant rather than just a replacement of what's there already. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ty and Bond to talk a little bit about the purpose and need and some of the goals and the condition of what's there now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Dubuque with Ty and Bond. I'm here to probably do the easiest part of the presentation, convincing you that the road is in need of repair. So I'll just go through a few things that we observed when out there. Is that the pavement condition is very poor. There's potholes, cracks, utility trenches that have sunk. There's also drainage issues that exist on the road, poor sidewalk condition and gaps in the sidewalk. So our main goals will be to improve crosswalks, define better roadway boundaries. Right now, the width varies a lot. We would have very defined curb boundaries for roadway width, and then better definition of where there is on-street parking and where there isn't. And we want to improve bicycle and pedestrian safety. And I'm just going to go through a few pictures here now, showing you some of the problems. This is some drainage issues here where we have ponding at an intersection. You can also see in the background, there's no sidewalk on the right-hand side there. That's one of the gaps that we're going to be connecting in the future. Well, here's another shot of that sidewalk where it just dead ends, and also some ponding there on the road. You can also kind of see where the width varies in and out. It's not really clear, you know, the defined boundaries of the roadway. Again, some ponding, cracking, ponding again in front of driveways, and the really poor condition of the sidewalk. Here again, you can see this is at the north end, where parking is, people use this as parking, but it's not really well defined as parking. And you can also see the potholes again. And then you can see here some of the utility trenches that have sunk. There are a lot of utilities in this roadway and a lot of patchwork that's been done. So it's really a rough road to travel on and really does need to be reconstructed. And now I'm going to turn it over.
Yeah, so, as we start thinking about reconstructing this roadway, just sort of a really good opportunity to incorporate the Naugatuck River Greenway while that's being done. The town, as part of a routing study in 2020 or 2019, identified Elm Street as a preferred route for the trail through this section. So while we're doing this project, we really would like to incorporate that greenway as we go. So I just want to give you guys a little bit of a background and sort of an understanding of what the Naugatuck River Greenway is. So it is a officially designated Connecticut Greenway. It was designated in sections, but Connecticut sort of looks at greenways as corridors of open space. Many of them contain a greenway trail or a multi-use trail, which is the idea here as well. The concept is for 44-mile trail from Derby all the way to Torrington. It's a non-motorized trail, so it's for bicyclists, pedestrians, and other wheeled users. It'll be about 10 foot to 12 feet wide, paved or stone dust, depending on the situation and what the community that it's going through wants. Whenever possible, it'll be off-road and separated from vehicular traffic. And the intent is for this to be an accessible trail, so accessible to all users of all abilities. And the purpose is really to improve the health and quality of life of residents and visitors. And since our communities are so close together in the valley, it can also provide a real viable transportation option, a non-motorized transportation option. So taking people from our downtowns to other downtowns, to transit options as well. Along the route, we're seeing as pieces are getting built, communities really wanting to restore access to the river. We've sort of turned our back on the Naugatuck River as, it was really an industrial river for so long and really not pleasant. But now that it's made a comeback, it's a really, it's sort of becoming a central focus of redevelopment along the whole route. And as we've seen, as these things are built everywhere, they do provide economic opportunities. So, this is a block from your main street in your downtown, the section we're talking about right now. So it's, a really good opportunity to get visitors to your businesses and, really, create an economic vitality that may not, be there right now. So, like I said, there's 11 communities that this trail is going to pass through, and a lot of them have made a lot of progress. I'm going to go quickly through some of these. Derby has built out their entire section, so they've over 2 miles of trail. It's an incredibly busy trail section, so they get about 300,000 trips a year taken on their trail. So it's like 1,000 trips every day. So 500 people a day basically are using this trail. So you go out there in the winter, in the summer, there's always people out there. And Sonia has built a two-thirds of a mile from Derby into their downtown, and another parallel route on the other side of the river as well. So they actually have a loop trail that goes around and adjacent to their downtown. There's a short section that's open in Seymour that's adjacent to the Tinnew Dam bypass. In Beacon Falls, they took one lane of their main street and turned it into a trail. And they also have a short section in Riverbend Park, and they plan to connect the two. In Naugatuck, there's a mile from Maple Street to Bridge Street that goes through Linden Park. They're seeing about 50,000 trips annually, so not quite as much as Derby, but it's still a very busy trail. Waterbury just this past spring opened 2 miles of Greenway Trail and a brand new city park, Platt Park, in their south end. And they also just received a really large federal grant to build the next section into their downtown. And they're also designing a spur trail that goes from the Greenway proper to a new recreational area that the city just built. So a lot going on in Waterbury. Watertown has a short section open near the DOT bus maintenance facility. And Torrington has 2 miles of trail open, including a really fantastic riverfront plaza that they have events at, and it's really, really nice. So, that's just to give you all an idea of what this trail is sort of shaping up in other communities. Thomaston's been working, as the first selectman said, on several sections. There is some funding in place. We're waiting to hear back on some funding as well, but Thomaston's really making progress as well. So we would really like to see, this be the first section that gets started with this LoTCIP funding. And as I said a few years ago, we, NVCOG and the communities along the trail north of Thomaston, conducted a comprehensive feasibility study looking at where the trail should go, trying to get feedback from the communities and make sure that we're sort of able to draw a line on a map and say this is where the trail is going to go, and also give the towns an idea of the cost and funding sources and things like that. So that was completed in 2020, and it's on our website. You can see that study. And as I said, Elm Street was designated as the preferred route during that study. So I'm going to hand it over to you again, to Rich, to talk about the concept and how we plan to incorporate it into this project.
If I may just interject briefly, the Elm Street section, which is only a small portion of what we're talking about overall, as Aaron indicated, we try to be as close to the river as possible. However, think about the proximity of the businesses and some of the properties and the slope of the properties as they are close to the river, which made it impractical in some areas to go along the river. Albeit that's what we would prefer. This became a more viable alternative to that. Based on Thomaston being who we are and what we are and the way our property has been built out, numerous years ago. We can't always take that ideal route, which honestly we would prefer. I would like nothing more than everything go right along the river. Just impractical in some areas. We needed to look for some alternative methods or alternative areas would probably be better description. And that's how we've come to the Elm Street as being a potentially preferred section.
Yeah, no, it's one of the first major greenways through the state, or greenway trails through the state, that's not being built on an existing right of way. You think about the Farmington Canal, most of it was an old railroad, and so it was relatively easy to do. This is much more challenging. We have to identify these routes as we go and try and do it in a way that minimizes the impact to surrounding properties and to communities, while also bringing as much benefit as possible. So just to get a sense, how many people in the room live on Elm Street? Okay, great, excellent. So I'm going to answer right now what is, I'm sure, your most pressing question. This is the existing right of way, and so you'll see it's 2 travel lanes that are fairly wide, a couple of snow shelves or medians between the road and the sidewalk, and sidewalks generally on both sides, but not always the case. So this is what we're proposing. And the first piece I want to mention is that we are going to stay within the proposal is to stay within the existing sidewalks. So even though the sidewalks may be reconstructed, the back of the sidewalk would not move any closer into your property. As we met to discuss this, the very first concern we wanted to make sure we addressed was using the space that's out there more effectively without having to do any kind of easements or takings. And so we came to this proposal based on what we had room for within the existing pavement that existed, or the existing pavement that's out there now, without with as minimal impact as possible. So you'll see what we're proposing here is to maintain the 2 sidewalks. Aaron mentioned that we typically want the Greenway Trail to be somewhere between 10 and 12 feet wide. In this case, that wasn't particularly possible or necessarily the best fit. And so what this option does is it splits cyclists and pedestrians into 2 separate spaces, meaning we're able to fit this in a smaller space. So we keep the existing 5-foot sidewalks on either side. We keep the existing 4-foot space between the roadway and the sidewalk. The roadway will get pushed over. And so you're looking toward the north here. And so the roadway gets pushed over a little bit away from the river. The western curb stays where it is. And the eastern curb will move over by just about 9 feet. And behind that eastern curb, behind that curb on the river side, will be a two-way cycle track. And we'll show you some pictures of what this looks like. You know, we talked about a couple of ways to do this. And this is the option that has the least interruption by making it grade separated like this, right? By putting that bike track or cycle track behind the curb. We don't need physical, like, width separation because we have the physical separation in height. And so this way we can fit it in without having to change the width of the existing pavement. We still get a very comfortable, very safe space for cyclists. We still have room for pedestrians, as well as room to put snow as they clear the streets. But we're able to accommodate all of the users more effectively. One of the other things this is going to do by shrinking those travel lanes, where we expect to see travel speeds come down, right? The wider the road is, the more drivers feel like they have a big open space, the faster they're going to drive. Just by shrinking the lanes down, you'll see a reduction in speed already. And there's some additional traffic calming measures we can talk about and we can consider as design happens, but that piece alone should have some impact. So just again, a concept here of what we're talking about. This is Edgewood Avenue in New Haven, which similar but different, obviously a very different context, but kind of a similar design where we took some of the inspiration for this. And so what you're seeing here on the screen, right, existing sidewalks, again, would remain where it is on Elm Street. You would maintain the strip of grass in between. It'd be possible, we can talk about, we'll talk about a little bit later on, some of the potential amenities, trees, benches, trash cans, anything that we may want to include there. The two-way cycle track, so in this case, it's 8 feet wide. And then this line here is granite curb. Then they have a little bit more street width. They have a parking lane and then travel lane. Here on Elm Street, we would have that curb, and then that would be a travel lane immediately adjacent. So here's again the kind of the same view, right? It's hard to tell in this picture, but this is just about a 6-inch separation from the actual roadway here to the cycle track here. So we're going to go now. We'll go kind of section by section just to show you what this is going to look like. These are pretty close. I mean, they're still sketches. It's still concept. So it's not exactly right, but they're relatively close to what the overhead would look like. And again, I would like to point out that these sidewalks, these gray lines here, are drawn in as the sidewalks, and those are exactly where they are right now. And so what you're looking at here, this is that intersection with South Main Street. The green will be additional grass, additional space between the road and the sidewalk. In this case, the only change on this block is this gets narrowed just a little bit, and that intersection gets narrowed a little bit. Makes it safer to walk across the intersection, while again helping to slow people down as they make that right turn off of South Main Street onto Elm Street. It's a very wide spot right now, and so it's easy to do that at speed without having to slow down or even think about it and forgetting that you're about to drive down a residential street. If we go over one block, so here is where we start to see the Naugatuck River Greenway come through. So in other projects, not in this project, but in future projects, the Greenway will come up Maple Street, kind of along the old Seth Thomas factory building. It'll go down behind that, like behind where Bucktown is. And, so this is future, that is planned. But what you're seeing here, right? So again, the gray is the sidewalk, right where the sidewalks are now. The green is the grass between the road and the sidewalk, and orange is what we're showing here as the bike lane. They won't be orange, I promise, unless you really want them again. But it was just the best way to show here on screen what you're seeing, right? And so again, no impact on either side. We do get to narrow some of these crosswalks a little bit and improve that the ability to cross the street here. And all of this again, right? It's not just the addition of the bike lanes that we're talking about. You'll have improved drainage on the street, just new pavement, so it'll be nice and much better condition. It's going to be a full reconstruction, not just the surfacing, so it will last for a long time and it will truly be better. And as they go through design, they'll look at drainage and they'll look at all of the other issues that are out there now and address that.
Sidewalks are going to be dipped to go into the driveways on the way there? Are they gonna dip those, sidewalk areas into the driveways, because right now,
Mhm.
that's pretty crown.
Yeah.
Yeah, side kind of hard getting in, even side two, on the back.
Mhm.
You were straightening that should be straightened out on the sidewalk.
Yeah, so I'll show you here. I don't want to answer that question just yet because we're still at concept. You know, nobody's done any design on this. But what you can see, these like gray spots in here, those are the driveways, and those are dipped down. And so the cycle track does take a little dip as it goes across the driveways to address exactly that issue. But again, that's something that gets figured out a little bit later on in design, and so certainly something we'll take into consideration.
Can I just jump in? So the sidewalk itself, as you're walking along the sidewalk, can't really dip because for wheelchairs and stuff, you have to go down to the road, the apron, yeah.
You know, people have to drive in their driveway.
Front of Tony's house, with the big crown to the
Big
road,
crown,
his apron.
Yeah.
it's high to get up there.
It's a car.
Okay.
No, that is certainly something we'll take into consideration as we get into design and, you know, make sure we get addressed for you.
When you narrow the road like that, does that make that no longer commercial traffic?
No, so an 11-foot lane is still plenty wide for commercial traffic. The actual new state standard for state roads is 11-foot travel lanes. So it'll still be a viable option for commercial traffic. Whether or not it's allowed is something the town can decide if they would like to, but
Trailers, but that's what's been out.
yeah, no, so this is still plenty wide for commercial vehicles.
To narrow that, it seems to be hard.
Mhm.
Very hard getting trailers around that corner on Maple Street.
Sure. Yeah, and so again, right, as in concept phase, we're just putting some colors down on paper. As the tie and bond goes through design, they will. That's me echoing somewhere. They will, you know, they'll run turning modeling and make sure that any vehicle that needs to be able to get in and out is able to get in and out. You know, and so some of the concepts we're showing, right, like shortening that angle there, that may not be possible as we get through design, but conceptually, it's something we'd like to look at.
And to that note, just let me say that as the design factor goes forward, several design medium points of interest here, so to speak. There's a 30% design that first comes out. And that's the kind of thing that, once again, will get presented, so everybody understands how we are doing with this project. And we're more from you at that point. Goes to an 80% design, assuming that everybody was good with the 30, the improvements that were suggested at the 30% design will be made at the 80% level, then presented to more governmental level at that point, assuming everybody made their comments, right? And then before it goes to final design. So there's a process that takes place, and albeit while you're hearing this now, okay, what you're seeing now, as Rich said, is truly conceptual. You'll actually see plans at a 30% design that come forward from this conceptual plan that you will be allowed to comment on.
And so just continuing down Elm, right, you'll see the continuation of the same features we've been talking about. Same through here. And as we get here, so north of Park Street, this is where we start to formalize some of that on-street parking that's there now. And then we go through up to the intersection here at East Main. And so again, this light blue line that you're seeing here on the screen, this is still conceptual. It is a planned future stage. Nothing will be built or you know, designed as part of this project, but that is the suggested route based on those routing studies that Aaron had been discussing.
Before you go, Rich, we talked about the need for some parking specifically as we get close to East Main Street. As Joint Metal 2 and other park in this area. So that is part of the concept as well, and how we address that. This is just one illustration, or at this point in time, and we may need to consider more as we go forward or not. But this is right adjacent to Joint Metal 2, because we've observed, as you have to live on the street, that cars often park pretty extensively in this general area. So we know that we need to provide for some parking in that area, on-street parking. There's no place else for them to go, and that's part of the consideration.
Yeah, and that was one of the images we showed, right? That spot is kind of oddly angled at the moment, and it collects water, and it's so by formalizing it like this, we make it a safer place to park, as well as it's a little more organized as part of the street. So again, right, part of the point of this is to discuss some of the possible amenities that can go out there, right? We're still very early for all of this. Most of these items won't be included until after the next stage of design. But just to start thinking about, would you like to see benches out there? Do you want to see trash cans, and what kind of landscaping? Right, trees between the street and the sidewalk, or no? Those are all things that can be considered as this moves forward from concept into more design.
The greenway side, or?
Could be on either side, absolutely. Yeah, so one of the items with LoTCIP that is worth noting is the state is sometimes hesitant to include these types of items in projects, but they're much more willing to do so if it's part of something like the Greenway. And so we believe that there will be no issue getting any of these items included as part of the LoTCIP program with state funding. And of course, anything that is not funded by the state, the town can then decide if they want to move it forward or not, but we don't anticipate that being an issue at this point. Now, when we talk about traffic calming elements, there's a couple of things we can talk about there. And again, we'll have lots of opportunity to accept comments and thoughts on this as we go forward. But it is things like narrowing some of those intersections to help slow down traffic. It would be, we could consider Union Street makes a great option to do a raised intersection. And so think about, I'm thinking the best example right now is where West Center Street and Bristol Street come together in Southington. And so the whole intersection is effectively on top of a speed table. And it forces people to slow down as they go through. And by doing so, you're putting the vulnerable users who are crossing at those crosswalks behind something that forces people to slow down. So something, again, right, something we can consider. Other traffic calming elements may include things like adding trees. Gives you that kind of sense of enclosure on the road. That enclosure makes the road feel more complex. Drivers are going to go a little bit slower. And so items like that we can consider kind of all along the route. Like I said, right, we know that there's a concern about the speed of people traveling down Elm Street, as well as the number of people traveling down Elm Street who are cutting through and skipping Main Street to do so. And many of these traffic calming elements are specifically designed to help address those issues.
Explain traffic table. I don't think anybody would understand that.
Yeah, so a speed table is a long speed hump, basically. So you get, instead of going up and down over a speed hump, or like immediately up and down a speed bump, a speed table, you go up, there's kind of a flat surface across the top, and then it comes back down. And so it's for, you'll put things like a crosswalk or a raised intersection on top of a speed table, because those are the places where you have cars interacting with other cars and cars interacting with people. And so the places you want cars moving the slowest. Now, again, none of that is necessarily, it has to be included. None of it is guaranteed, but it's all something that we want to get everybody thinking about and talking about, and certainly have the option to include if that is the preference. So I'm going to run through the project schedule and just a couple other quick points, and then open the floor up to comments and questions. And again, right, we have the designers, we have our COG staff here to discuss and help address those for you. So we expect the design will take place throughout 2024. Like the first selectman said, there will be another public meeting at the next phase of design. And so we're expecting that to happen right around the summer of 2024. And so that's when some of those other questions will get answered, right? How will the road or driveway aprons be met with the street, so you're not hitting the bottom of your car every time? We'll be able to address some of those a little more thoroughly at that next public meeting. And given the current schedule, we hope to be able to start construction in the spring of 2025. That there's always a chance that it doesn't happen, but that is the goal at the moment. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over back to the engineers and to my colleagues to discuss some of these traffic calming elements, to be able to, or other project elements that may be included, as well as to answer any questions you may have and address any comments. If you are online and have a comment, feel free to either use the raise your hand feature here in Zoom, or enter it into the chat, and we have a NVCOG staff member here to answer that. If you are on the phone, to unmute yourself, it's *6. And then contact us at nvcogct.gov is a great way to share feedback with us after this meeting. We also have some business cards over here on the corner, so feel free to reach out to any of us directly, and we're happy to share some additional answers or discuss further. And so with that, I think we'll open it up for everybody here to start answering some questions. Yeah.
So, my name is Erin. That's part of I've had privilege of working in Pine Bond. I just want to show people on they're communicating with us on normal basis on different bills. Big problem property, that is just problem solved, they keep it eliminated. So I just want to give you a shout out. The other thing is we designed halfway to the bike is along the left hand side, let's say, is coming from well, where it's coming from. We've got your streets that intersect into it. In those areas, I'm wondering if there is a possibility of putting bollards or something to give those bikers. People are turning. What if they, fly? What if they have a miscalculation? I think bollards at any place where there's an intersection where bikers and cars can make these turns or coming into contact with one another, please consider that. I'd also like to start out that I'm a co-chair of the South Thomas Park Revitalization Committee, and in regard to the amenities or the design plan, where it comes into play with what we have already gotten approval with the town put into this, our project, the street lamps, the garbage cans, the amenities along the way. There's something that we'd like to put it in or comment on, so that there's continuity. I'm also currently involved in something about connecting Elm Street, and we're kind of back to once with that program. For that to be considered, we want consistency on both our main street as well as Elm Street. Our downtown being reflected is very important. So this project is going to be wonderful. I have a negative, and that is the start time is spring 2025. That's the 150th anniversary of the town of Thomaston. A lot of traffic in town. Maybe it's a good thing you're going to force the people up on the Main Street. Maybe it's a good thing if you guys really start a little bit later. I don't know. Those are things that I would worry about, because we're looking forward to putting some good projects, and a lot of committees are working on our 150th anniversary being very, very fun and full for the whole year. Thank you.
That's great to know. Yeah, Elm Street's a beautiful street, and so yeah. For anybody online, just kind of a quick summary. Actually, Karen, I'll let you do this. I'm gonna have to step out in a moment, but so the comment was that working with Ty and Bond on Hickory Hill was great, and so I'm sure they appreciate that. That to include elements that are similar to Seth Thomas Park, you said, along the street, which absolutely, right? Continuity of visuals is a really key part of placemaking, and so something that we would like to make sure we include. Now it's going to feedback. And then the last comment was that 2025 is the town's 150th anniversary, and so there will be events happening. I think Elm Street's a beautiful street, and I'm sure you will have people seeing it. And so that is really important for us to take into consideration as we move forward on this, and absolutely will. Yes, thank you. And there was a point about bollards along especially at intersections along the cycle track, which is absolutely a traffic calming element, right? Having physical separation between vulnerable road users and drivers is, certainly a way to guarantee safety for the vulnerable users, while also, again, making it a little more visually complex for drivers and forcing them to pay a bit more attention. So thank you for all the comments. Now I'm going to turn it over to Karen, who's going to run the rest of the Q&A session here.
All of us. Yeah. I just want to make a note that we do have someone taking notes, so all of what you said is being, you know, the whole thing's being recorded, but we also have someone note-taking for us as well. Yes, sir.
Dave Norton, I live at 75 Elm Street. One of my biggest, I guess, issues with it, I actually like the computer project, but anytime we have anything in town, there is an awful lot of people that park on Elm Street now. And you are essentially eliminating all on-street parking.
A good chunk of it. We understand that that's a big
Somebody has to
concern,
park at the house. There's no place to park.
right? That is going to be part of the design process, is to come up with some alternatives for the parking and not just eliminate parking. We don't want to do that. We know we need to provide parking somehow,
I mean, there's always car parking.
right? I've noticed it myself, and Ed's mentioned it to me several times, and you know, it's been relayed to the design team, so.
Yeah, especially if you have the car show in town, we have the carnival.
Right. Right. We're gonna be looking at that for sure.
You're gonna be able to park on the street now, and you can narrow that roadway, and with the bicycle, you have to be able to park at all.
Well,
I ended up being able to park and be able to drive safely on the 2 lanes.
it's not really designed for parking the way it is. And even if the roadway is reconstructed, there would be new curbing put in. And, we would put in, let's say we didn't put in the bike lane. You would still want to have 11-foot lanes marked and then a white line and a shoulder, but your shoulder wouldn't be big enough for parking. I think people are parking now kind of over what would be the curb area. So even if we were to just reconstruct the road, it would be an issue. So, again, that's why, you know, we understand the importance of addressing the parking situation.
Just to piggyback on the parking now, I'm a resident of town, but I'm also the committee for the Legion, American Legion, and senior officer. And for us, for any business, all there is on-street parking. Of course, we don't have parking.
Right.
You know, do home rentals. That's a big part of our business. Try to stay open, stay alive. And with the parking the way it'll be down there right now, people deal with it. It's okay because you can park on both sides right now. But that bike lane going in, we have to lose one side, even just one side, could really do damage to our business.
We
We
understand.
would struggle. I mean, but we struggle enough. It's hard, you know, get a lot of veterans, like get better. So but we're saying we stay alive. We're involved, you know, and, so I just like to keep that in mind as far as, the party thing is important.
I would comment, we do realize, and in fact, this is one of the things that we talked about pretty extensively. Parking, specifically by the Legion down to East Main Street. That's where the preponderance of it occurs on a regular basis. How do we accommodate that? And that is something that is realized and needs to be addressed in some manner. We've kicked around some ideas, however, you know, do we find another place for everybody else to park? Do we find some municipal parking in that area? However, at this point in time, we don't have any items. So we need to look at the road itself and how we can design things in order to accommodate it. Regarding the other end of the street, to be in fairness, and we disagree with it. But I'm gonna kind of take a bold step there. A lot of you have long driveways, right? So if we can utilize those for when company comes, that might alleviate the problem to some degree. That's not to say that it's always gonna be entirely possible. I don't know, you have a Christmas dinner and now you got 20 people show up and they don't all fit in your driveway. We get that, you know? By the same token, you know, are we gonna have the police out there taking every car that's on that road? So, for the most part, we are looking for some community, not just support, but, involvement here to try to alleviate some of the potential issues that can come up as a result of this whole project moving forward. Just something for you guys to consider. And if you want to say that the folks here tonight, and the meeting for that matter, that's totally impossible and often, you know, not even a reasonable consideration, we'll hear you. Okay? And if that's what needs be, well then, you know, concept here. That's gonna require, quite honestly, some assistance in the folks that live there as well, to try to accommodate something that we would hope would be better for Elm Street residents as well as the county. There's something to think about. And yeah, please make your comments, please. We're not trying to cast this issue.
Yes.
John Weiss, 56 Elm Street. I'm just about at the corner of Maple and Elm. And my concern is traffic, mainly the industrial traffic during the 10 hours during the day. The trucks take wide turns, so you would have to address how the turns in and out or routing of commercial traffic has accessibility to the factory area, because multiple businesses are in there, not just industrial. You have the hate club, people just going in park and so forth. Maple Street doesn't have any form of sidewalks. Just at the corner, it stops, which is on Elm Street, and it's just grass going up Maple on either side, the parking lot or in front of the home. It's a blind spot too, directly down the road at River Street and Maple Street. It's not really utilized based on traffic, but I'm right on the other side of my back here. I can hear things. It's just how traffic flows in that vicinity from River Street, Maple Street up to Elm Street. And then, as you were talking about a platform at Union Street and Elm Street, that is not going to stop anybody from trying to race to get to the stoplight on Main Street. And maybe rumble strips would work, because having trees, some lines, people are just going to think, oh, I'm taking a nice cruise going at 45, and it's 25 there, and trying to make that light just to catch it. It happens every single day, every single hour, especially when you have individuals leaving the Blacktown Room during high hours of usage, like Fridays and Saturdays. They race through there. It's also dark. If you're planning to have a walkway, which would be utilized by a lot of people, especially during the summertime, maybe more lights along Elm Street might help, Mr. Moon. Not the purple lights that are currently there, that's throughout the entire state, which is. And I got kids, I like to take them out to their bikes. The idea of speeding the main kind of works out in that. I have dirt driveway, I think, like that. Parking lot where I haven't riding, utilized for business. So I am on par to have something working to better the beautiful town. Just that traffic is a major piece. Just setting up one little platform is not going to do it. You gotta put more control on it, and trees are in that. Maybe making them aware. We actually had a little sign that said you're going at the speed. At one point, it was making people conscious.
Yeah, that's being done in some areas where you have those signs that tell you what your speed is. Oh, there was one at one time, yeah. A lot of times they're temporary.
So in terms of other traffic calming on us, we can certainly investigate rumble strips. We can certainly look at any sort of other features. We talked about the speed table earlier, but any ideas that you guys would like to bring forward for the other elements? Maybe the speed table is not enough. You want to include other features. That's certainly something we can also incorporate into the design. Yes.
How can you even consider River Street? I mean, there's less traffic on River Street for the bicycle.
For the greenway,
Right.
Oh, the question is, how come the River Street wasn't considered for the greenway? That's an Aaron question.
I mean, that's a very low traffic flow.
That was considered. So you can go on our website and see the study, and you can see all of the options that were considered, and that was one of them. There's pros and cons to all of them. The committee that was overseeing the project sort of weighed those pros and cons. I think the things that River Street had going against it is that it's much narrower. There's no sidewalks for most of the route. So you would have to, in order to consider that, you would basically have to take one of the lanes of the roadway to keep it within the right of way there. So you would almost have to make River Street a one-way street, which I don't think anybody wanted to do. I think, River Street, Elm Street, since it had the sidewalks for most of the route on both sides, was a little bit more appealing. And also I think the proximity to downtown is to bring some of that traffic. If you're not going to be able to be right next to the river, which I think was the goal to begin with, having something closer to downtown would bring some of that traffic into businesses in downtown. So.
Go ahead.
I don't know if anybody else would like this idea, but maybe you could eliminate the sidewalk on the other side of the street, take on the parking.
The comment was possibly eliminating sidewalk on one side of the street,
On the opposite side.
on the opposite side of where the trail's gonna go, and consider on-street parking.
Yeah, so that's something we can certainly look into as we go through design. That's an idea we can look into.
Also, possibility of making it a one-way street if you're gonna take increased parking.
Possibility of making it a one-way street. That can be considered. We have someone online with a question. Hello?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
How long will the project take if it starts in the spring of 2020?
So the question was, how long will the project take if construction starts in the spring of 2025? We don't have any, since the project is only in conceptual phases, it is difficult to project that, but if I was to take a guess, my guess would be like around 12 to 18 months. What do you think, Time Bond?
Yeah, if it starts April of 2025, it'll probably not get completed until summer of 2026. If we start April 1st and you go until November 1st, you can still pave in November, but it's not ideal. We've had some bad luck with paving in November. So the amount of work that has to be done, it's going to be very similar to Hickory Hill Road. We drilled corings out there and the existing subbase is not suitable to be reused and reclaimed. So what would have to happen is like Hickory Hill Road was done, it was boxed out, 18 inches was dug out and replaced with good gravel and then repaved. That in itself would probably take better part of 4 to 6 months. It can be done in stages and still be done with traffic flowing through there, but not to get it done in time to get it all paved before winter of 2025. So the work is going to go into, like Kevin said, it's an 18-month project. It's not a project you want to start. I understand there's activities in 2025. We would not start this project in August and then get shut down in November and then have to do the entire project the following year. It really needs to get started in the springtime and get completed in the following year. So if it's not 2025, it may get pushed to 2026 and then goes from 2026 to 2027. Now, just to add on a couple of questions that were asked about speed table. Right now, there is a three-way stop at Union Street. What Kevin was mentioning, that could be a speed table. It would be the entire intersection. If any of you ever travel down New Haven, they have speed tables on quite a few roads. Those speed tables slope up maybe 6 feet across, slope back down again. But on the roads that they installed those, they're every 400 to 500 feet. They got a marking on it that says speed table, and they will slow down. If somebody hits that at 45 miles an hour, they're going airborne. They won't do it a second time. It's impossible to speed when you have speed tables, but if that's something residents want, we'll look at it. Or we could do intersection speed table at Maple Union, and maybe River Street. That would break the road up quite a bit. Question about on-street parking, if we keep the bikeway on the east side, the riverside, we could put on-street parking on the west side, but that would take the grass strip and the existing sidewalk. Because to get proper on-street parking, you need an 8-foot lane. I mean, there's some cars that would barely fit in an 8-foot parking space, but you would need 8 feet for on-street parking outside of the travel way. But we can look at that in 30% design.
Certainly.
And then I know there was a question about on the west side, some of the driveways. During design, we would look at it. In some of those cases, part of the project may entail rebuilding your driveway all the way up to your garage to get a proper slope. We did that in Hickory. Some of the driveways were just on aprons because the grade worked. Other places we may have gone in 40, 50 feet to rebuild the driveway so that they didn't have a slope going down to the roadway. Again, that would be looked at in the 30% design.
And if your driveway was to get reconstructed in such a way, that'd be paid for with the project, not with your money.
Sure.
You'd have to get it right.
So one more thing, if we do have to rebuild your driveway back that far, then you would have to enter into an agreement with the town of right to grade or right of entry, or give them an easement to do that work.
That's generally just called a temporary construction easement. If you permit us to go on your property and do the necessary work, we don't claim that easement after the work is done. It totally reverts back to you. It's just a matter of we need your consent if we need to go on your property and do any work.
Now, that may be my concern. That's my house right there.
Which one?
If you want to do a speed table, my driveway is right there, right by the sidewalk, right by the crosswalk. So it's like, how high is the speed table?
6 inches.
So like it did.
No, it doesn't dip down. You're coming down the road, slopes up, and it's level with the curb. Speed table is whatever the length we decide to make it. Intersection would be from the crosswalk to crosswalk, and then it slopes back down. But it's only 6 inches high.
Yeah, 6 inches deep coming out of my driveway onto the strip.
That's a situation we'd have to look at, and maybe the speed table doesn't work there. Maybe a smaller speed table goes someplace else on the road.
Right. Mention.
Yeah.
Totality in order to make.
This is conceptual. It's based on the aerial map you see. We did not do a survey. Before we do anything, once the design starts, first thing we do is have a survey done of the entire roadway so that we know what we have to work with. Then some of these ideas will either work out, or we just say, well, because the existing conditions don't allow it, those ideas go away.
I'd like to see the survey done of people that don't stop at the stop sign. Every day somebody.
It's worse at night.
And that's a lot of the traffic calming elements we'll look at, and of course, people just running through a stop sign. That's something we of course do not want to have happen.
If the town decides to go that way, we could set up a survey in which they actually set cameras out to record an intersection for a week's time, and then people review the data and they can see what's going on. Because the ones that the police put up with the signs and you go this fast, some people obey it. It deters some people. Other people play a game with it to see how accurate the speedometer is.
You'll see at least 3 people both missing without even slowing down.
We could do video surveillance of that. People won't know what's going on, and then we could have the evidence to show what's going on.
Yes.
There's a stop sign there, and maybe 70% of the people fully stop at it. People go through, but whether they stop or not, between Maple and Union, or between Main, the speed at which people approach that stop sign, even if they're going to stop, they're in a big hurry to get there. So I think not so much speed table there, but
something, speed bumps, rumble strips, something to just slow people's pace between the points. 'Cause
Rumble strips.
So let me read the question first. So the question is regarding speeding issues between the southern end of the project on Main Street up to Union Street, and how people are speeding to get to Union Street as fast as possible.
I don't necessarily think that speed is gonna do a whole lot there because it's already done, but something slow to the one set in the street where they're actually.
If you're driving New Haven, go over the speed tables, you'll understand that they do slow people down.
Yeah, you're stopping, you come to a stop sign, you're not going over.
We could put a speed table a couple hundred feet before, a couple hundred feet after. Rumble strips only work if it's a long stretch of pavement.
So we included this photo because it shows how wide the road currently is. And part of why people speed is because it's, you know, we have all this room to just zoom right along and really, you know, it's gonna get quite a bit narrowed. I guess, let's see, this side is gonna come in quite a bit, so now you're gonna have a much narrow road for traveling, and that really should help with some of the speeding.
Yes. Oh yeah. Go ahead. Yes. All right. So the first question is: does the bike path need to be plowed? That's something Eric can partially answer. It's something each town will decide on their own if they want to clear it for winter or not. I don't know how many towns or if any towns currently are.
So some communities do pave or do plow their so Derby and Ansonia, they bought a big piece of equipment and the city and the town actually do plow them. This I don't think will be. It's sort of one of the benefits of having the sidewalk as well as the bike path. You know, residents are responsible for the sidewalks and that won't change, but they won't have to also plow the.
Two sidewalks need to be replaced, the bike path on one side and the sidewalk on the other.
You could.
22 feet. 9 feet for the little grass area, 5 feet for the sidewalk.
So one of the.
Parking,
Yeah.
all the weekend beds, and specific.
So.
We're all worried about traffic. I also worry about traffic. We're going to go for town. That's exactly what I Yeah. You'll see, you guys know the conditions. Pretty ugly like that. What happens is that you can ask anybody who lives on the street. Once we improve that street, you have traffic. There's no question about it. And I can guarantee you, you don't want to hear that will just naturally happen. When you have potholes and poor condition of roads, it does tend to slow people down. If they're hitting it hard in your cars and it's doing damage and you're concerned about that. So, I don't want to say that let's not improve this road, guys. I think so can be. I really, they will only have an opportunity to do it. Do it right, as Fred mentioned about. Creating a new base. This is what we did on Hillside Hill so that the road last. Now, that doesn't mean you don't end up cracked. This is Connecticut, and you get expansion into that, and that's gonna happen. But the actual road, after it's been reconstructed, with the LoTCIP program, okay, last. All you have to do is from 3 point times, it's just a million. And that's a whole hell of a lot better than trying to rebuild the road there. Again, the benefit here is that we only have to do. But again, we want to hear your concerns, but I'm just giving you the reality.
All right, so we got a question online.
You had a question.
Yes.
So, you said.
I'm going to fix the road. I just think it's really hard. Yeah, that's a-
This question was about removing the sidewalk and the grass strip on one side and replacing it with parking and keeping the.
I'm street parking one side of it.
Right, then you don't have a sidewalk on the side.
Right.
You eliminate the sidewalk for walking. If you let people walk on it, so you have to go on the other side of the road, on the east side, walk. Right with that. Yeah, and you're gonna eliminate one sidewalk.
So just a quick question, if I may pose this to you guys. Part of the proposal is here, in order to provide for on-street parking. How would you feel about sidewalk on one side of the road instead of two? Is that objectionable to you guys, or you wanna continue with the two sidewalks? Let me do it this way. By raise of hand, tell me if it's important to you to have sidewalks on both sides of the road. Okay, thank you. I just try to get some sense here as we talk about these kinds of things as to what it is that's favorable to you. Because again, that's the point of it.
Well, we have to have a trailway included in the construction.
Say that again?
Have to have a trail.
The bike.
In this reconstruction.
Greenway.
So the goal of this project is to include section of the Naugatuck River Greenway because it was included as part of the routing study. So it was a low-hanging fruit for us to incorporate into here. Now, there certainly are other options in terms of methods to get a bike pathway through the section of roadway, which you can certainly look at, which they have less impact for a footprint within your community. So we can investigate that, try to mitigate the size of this. All right, so is there a question still online?
Yeah, they're named iPad.
All right, what was the question? All right, so,
We can't hear you.
yeah, can you please unmute yourself? You have your question online.
Maybe type it into the chat if possible.
Yeah, if you could type in the chat, we can certainly answer your question that way. So I'll take one from, yes.
Doesn't the bikeway also, it's a multi-use trail, so people can walk on the bikeway, isn't that correct?
So because we kept the sidewalks in this concept design on both sides, we're able to make the bikeway narrower. So it would just become only a bikeway, and it's not a place formally for pedestrians to also use. It is an effort to save space and keep the sidewalks on both sides. Yeah.
If we make it a combined bike path sidewalk, we would have to eliminate the sidewalk on one side. This combined path would be 12 feet wide to accommodate two-way bicycles and two-way pedestrians.
And then you might have the issue with snow removal. So now if you eliminate the sidewalk on that side and you only have this multi-use trail, you know, then that has to be considered.
Responsible for that,
Right.
that area, because that's responsibility that now that. Sidewalk, we're all up on the area, in front of your house, correct?
And there was also.
That opens up another can of worms.
There was also the issue, you know, the concept is really staying within the, you know, back of sidewalk to back of sidewalk. So we're not, you know, we're not coming towards your houses at all. If you create that 12-foot path on one side, that path's got to go somewhere. It can't fit within, you know, the side of the existing sidewalk. So you either have to, you know, impact all of those telephone poles and all the utilities, which is going to, you know, balloon the cost of this, or you've got to come toward your, you know, onto your property. So, you know, that's why this concept was proposed.
That's a good question. You had asked about no bike paths, just rebuild a road. If that happens and we put on-street parking can only be on the west side. Because the entire east side has a pole line. Now, we could force Eversource to relocate poles. The schedule just went up 2 more years to get that done. It's that long to get them to relocate poles. And most of the time when we rebuild roads, we rebuild it, the old poles are still there, and they get relocated after we're done. So if we just rebuilt the road, 26-foot pavement, and put on-street parking, the on-street parking would be on the complete east side, not on the west side. Right now, there's random on-street parking because there's no curbs. You want to solve a drainage problem, you got to put in catch basins. You want the water to go to the catch basins, you got to curb the road. And once you put a 6-inch curb in there, people are going to jump the curb and park on the grass and the sidewalk, but some people will do that, but that's not what you want. If you want improved drainage, you need curbs. And that's what limits there's 17 telephone poles on that side of the road. But we're moving the pavement to the east.
I can go back there, yeah.
Nope.
It's getting there.
You know, something to keep in mind is if you,
Yeah.
let's say we didn't do the bike path, right? There still would need to be a connection to the other pieces of the Naugatuck River Greenway. And so now the only option would be to allow bicyclists to be on the road, right? And now you've got bikes and cars together, which we know that's not a safe situation. And the concept that we're proposing is you have that separation. You have a vertical separation from the traffic. You're slowing the traffic by narrowing the amount of space for them, and you're giving the bicyclist a safe place to travel. So, you know, it's like you got to compromise, you know, it's the parking, it's the bicyclists, it's the pedestrians, we don't want to encroach on your property. So what we're proposing is, you know, we've considered all these things and tried to figure out, you know, how to best accommodate, you know, it's never a perfect situation, but safety of the bicyclists and pedestrians is something that we're trying to really focus on.
Yes.
The other street on Maple. And then turn on to Main Street. Is there any way to come to the corner so that the tractor trailers can get out?
Do you understand her question?
Yeah, so I'll repeat the question. The question is regarding large vehicles turning using Elm Street and Maple Street on that corner. Is that correct?
Because go straight across Maple, South Main in order to make the turn.
Oh, I see. Because this intersection is cut off.
No truck traffic on Elm anyway.
It's talking about traffic going along Maple Street here. To here, the intersection is cut off. That's right.
Aerial, can we get to that in the beginning? It was in the very beginning.
Yeah, we're going back to it. Yes.
Could you repeat which direction you're talking about? I can hear you.
Yeah.
Maple,
Yeah.
River Street comes onto Elm Street and across the way to Maple Street by the park. Trucks go straight across Maple Street to South Main Street in order to make the turn onto South Main Street. You can't go right or left. You have to go straight across. There's not enough turning room at the moment. Are you going to make it workable for them to get out on that? get out of that end of River Street.
You say, yeah, they go from River Street.
Yeah, they have to go straight across, right, they can't turn,
We can get a turn there.
they can't turn,
They don't, we can
they
get,
don't turn.
we can get them to turn there. It would probably require taking property, to make the radiuses work.
I'm just asking you to think about it.
That's something that can be done, but we would have to take part of that corner to allow the truck to turn this way. But then we have to look at, can the truck turn that way?
No,
It's not gonna be able to without taking part of the park.
So if you want vehicles to be turning in all directions at the intersection of Maple Street and Elm Street, that's something we can look into during the design process, and that's certainly something we can include. And on the flip side, if you don't want vehicles turning in specific directions, that's also something we can include in the design intentionally. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
Or someone said there was gonna be a vertical separation between the bike path and the road.
That's correct.
What?
No, just a little,
So I'll repeat the question. So the question is asking what the vertical separation between the bike path and the street will be, and I will jump ahead to quickly highlight it in the picture that we have. So this is catching up. So this right here is a 6-inch granite curb. This is a very, obviously very hard rock that is used in a lot of roundabouts and other nice downtown areas. And this has you'll have the roadway, and then you'll have 6 inches right here, and then you'll have the bike path. So that 6-inch difference between the road and the bike path is the vertical separation. We are not planning to have any fencing or of the sort between the bike path and the road, because that would be hard for people to utilize their driveways, and also just for pedestrians and bicyclists to use the street effectively.
So you're only walking on one side of the road. Sidewalk. You eliminate one sidewalk on one side.
no, that's not,
You don't want to, I'm just saying, is that what you want to do?
the way, what we presented, no, you would still have both sidewalks, but we can consider that if that's something that the
Demand for on-street parking is that important, and one sidewalk has to go on one side of the road.
Yeah, but does it take away the element of the historic?
We understand,
That's exactly.
we understand that, but right now, there's on-street parking, but it's not legal parking. It's there because there's no curbs. Once you put curbs in, there's no on-street parking. Not if we make it 24 feet wide. Because then, like I said, you would have to ticket if you're blocking the travel.
Greg's point is, in order to design the road and the parking areas for the proper regulations, let me call it, for lack of better. And by the way, this LoTCIP money requires state deals that we meet, state Department of Transportation stipulations. So they have very specific design that we can't take the money if we're not going to meet them. So that is also a consideration as we look at this whole piece. Just so you understand, this is not everything here, and we'll get this in a second. Everything here has to be subject to the state DOT as well. In order to get the funding, which is substantial, what do we have roughly spread for a cost? 3 million?
3.5 to 4 million for the project that we've been talking about.
So-
If we don't put a sidewalk, the bike path in, it's still a $3 million road project.
So that's where we're looking to, get this into the LoTCIP program. Because, well, hell, that's off the back of our taxpayers, right? And when we're not, there's a possibility, it's the prudent thing to do, I would say. So understand that while we can accommodate to some degree, but there has to be some give take to, right, in order to get this done and use state money to do it. Just one final comment from me, I don't know if it's final, but one comment. As we design it, right, we really do need to take into consideration This is an opportunity to do it, and again, do it with LoTCIP funding, right? Because otherwise, we're looking to build this section right now, we have some funding in place, we're trying to close the gap on it. To build a section of Greenway from down by the south end plan, Tony, all the way up to East Main. Now, it's only a section, and it's kind of a section in between. There's plans in place for some others as well. They're not as far along as this. But if we do not do anything here, we're gonna find ourselves with a dead end. And while I commented earlier about our desire to really go close to the river as possible, the topography and the buildings that have been built there centuries ago, wherever it's been, there's just no ability to do so. We could cantilever the whole thing. Right? Now we're talking just extremely large dollars, all right? And so it's not practical, just not practical. So as you talk about all of this, please take all those things into consideration, all right? And we want to accommodate here. We want you guys to be happy at the end of the day. Because if you're not, then we just don't do this project. But I think this is a great opportunity for us to improve the roadway significantly, okay? At little cost to the town's taxpayers, and get a small piece, albeit it's just small, of greenway on the books so that we can move forward with the rest of it, without having to break in the middle.
Yes.
I think it's really great that considering and funding it. And I just want to give kudos to all of you on the design of the road. It's a minimal change for a really big effect, and I think that's going to bring a lot of good things downtown.
Well, thank you. Yes.
With the potential increase of people going up and down the street, I mean, you entered these numbers of 300,000 trips. There were studies that also include the crime rate and sound levels that will increase. I mean, Elm Street's got traffic that's relatively quiet and peaceful. If you're gonna up 300,000 people going up and down the street, that's gonna.
I'll repeat the question quickly. So the question is, if we build a bike path through Elm Street, is there a concern of increased crime rates, noise pollution, anything of that like?
So I'll say Derby is really, far and away the busiest trail in the state that I'm aware of. We've been counting on similar trails across the state, and it's, it's 2-3 times as much traffic as any other trail. I don't expect anywhere near that amount of traffic on this section. But even when you go out to Derby on a really busy day, nobody's yelling and screaming. It's quiet traffic. It's people walking. It's people running. It's people walking their dogs. It's not.
Baby stroller.
Right.
Just trying to.
And I'm not aware of any studies that show that there's an increase in crime when trails are built. If anything, trails, you get a lot of people out on a trail, it's sort of self-policing. People are going to report things that, they don't want to see, which sort of, where you do see the crimes where there isn't foot traffic, where there are people out there doing, walking and running and doing normal everyday things. So, in Cheshire, we heard, when they were building the section of Permanent Canal Trail through Cheshire, we heard these same concerns about crime and traffic and things like that. And, we really didn't see anything like that come to fruition when it was built. So I don't see it as a concern.
Regarding that, if I may just briefly, then yes, sir, you wanted to speak. So I said we recognize you. You're absolutely next. That's where I get down my really deep. Regarding, well, okay, one can tell you, we could put up no food trucks. However, following that, what state law says statute states that any truck that's making a delivery in the town can use any road. So while we can put those signs up, those trucks need to go to Unionville. Or a delivery, well, there you go, or even try to do more about it, or a delivery at the Legion, or anything else along those lines, but for that matter, a delivery to your house. That's permitted by state law. There's nothing we can do. It is an annoyance, I agree with that, but, you know, we have to live by the laws that exist in the state of Connecticut as well, whether we like it. We don't always like them, but, you know, so, sir, your comment.
All my question was, and I understand the Greenway is a big part of this project. Would you need the Greenway to get that money?
We need that section of Greenway to get this.
Would there have to be Greenway on this road to get that last?
For this road, I would have to say no. However, you understand, as I so said earlier, if you cut this out and we put that portion from the plaza up behind, along the river from Maple Street, behind Front Metal Tube and such, get that in. No value now, and if it's that end, then the state is likely to want to pull whatever funding it may have for that, because they'll see, their word is there's no terminus. Okay? And if there's no terminus, then there's no point.
Yes, there's a question online.
Has any thought or study been done into making Elm Street one way and how the space could be?
So the question was, has there been a study or investigation for how Elm Street could be a one-way street and how the space could be used? We can certainly investigate that during design. If we would wish to make this a one-way street, that could certainly give room for parking and the bike lane and other features. Of course, the downside is it is one way. If you're on one side of the street, you have to go all the way south or all the way north to reach your destination. That can potentially create more traffic as people have to take the long way around to get to their destination. Are there any other questions online at the time? Okay. Any other questions in the room?
There we go, please.
I've lived on Elm Street for 43 years now, and personally, I'm not fond of having that much more traffic go by my house on a daily basis.
So the statement was, a resident is not a fan of having more traffic going by their house. So when you talk about traffic, are you talking about vehicle traffic, pedestrian traffic, cycle traffic, or all of it?
That's the cycle traffic.
Okay.
You wanna touch on that, because if we don't designate that raised bike path, I think it would still be considered to route the Naugatuck River Greenway along Elm Street. And now they would just be on the street, which again isn't, the safest option. So I think either way, you're gonna get the bike traffic. And so we're just trying to give them a designated safe place to travel.
Sort of dead ending the whole situation. As I just talked about a moment ago. If there's no terminus, the state will pull funds. We've been arguing on another small section for the longest period of time, honestly about 14 years. That's how long I've been serving you guys. All right, to date. A greenway down the end, south end of town. And the argument for the state of Connecticut is always, well, we need to cross Braintree. And we've been trying to get that funding, and the argument was always, well, you have no terminus. Well, we're working on that now after 14 years of working there. We have the funds for that one small section to get things going. But because we have nothing on the other side of the brook, by the way, which is Watertown, okay, we have no terminus. Watertown is in the process now. It's a design now, correct? Yeah. They're in design now to put their trail in that will go down to Crossbridge Road, where there is a piece of trail around the new development that took place, just small, but then that'll connect with Waterbury, right? And with that being planned, once that goes to construction, that will then create the terminus to get the bridge we need to create our section as well. There was no point in building our little small section that was going nowhere. We always needed to get over the brook. If we get that little piece in itself, it's still a significant section. What is it, about a mile and a half?
It's 2.3 miles in Watertown and then another 1,000 feet in Thomaston.
But for the great benefit of time. But, again, I go back to my central point, which is terminus. If we don't have that, there's no point in the opportunity.
Yes.
Lighting traffic, is there possibility that adding streetlights to our Elm Street downtown? I know on Hickory Hill, whatever was existing was what was there. I kind of like the color, but the street lamps are not funded on Elm Street. This is certainly an ADA safety, I think, that they have considered. I'd also like to make a comment on the other end of Elm where we need to think. You'll be making improvements there if you create that end of the road sidewalk area to be into the park at that end. But your property also rounds up onto East Main Street. And it's an extremely wide sidewalk area. That's one place I'd be worried about, curving with people coming and going. Is there any ambiance improvement to that corner that's in this thing? Including maybe benches there, lighting, again, it's cohesive with the downtown plan, and then carries on to more places than it's just on them.
So I'm gonna answer your question in reverse order. So you're talking about additional amenities possibly at the northern end of this project, at specifically intersection, but also along the corridor in general. All of the amenities are something that we will investigate into design. We can certainly look into bollards, trash cans, benches, whatever all of you are interested in. And then getting to the question, we had a question about, is additional lighting considered again along this corridor? That is something, again, if additional lighting is something you would like to see along the corridor, we can certainly investigate and design and get implemented.
One of the things we briefly discussed when we were talking about the saying that would it need special designation or could it just be part of the project? Would we have to get that special designation from the town in some manner?
We got,
More to downtown development district, or could that be implemented without that?
because of, if the bike path is included, we already spoke to the folks at DOT regarding, potential pedestrian lighting, meaning not the big overhead, street lights, but pedestrian level like lamps and things. They indicated, this is the state, so we'd have to verify, but they did indicate that we could include that pedestrian level lighting with the project, and it would be considered a participating item because of the bike path and bringing that pedestrian and bicycle traffic in there.
And if I may add, sometimes getting these features, including these projects, can be difficult depending on what the project is. If you have a side street that's not really connected to anything, it's hard to advocate for nice decorative pedestrian lighting. If you have a sidewalk there next to the street, you build a stronger case for it. With 2 sidewalks and a bike path, you have a very strong case to the state to get these features included in the project.
And something that comes up is some pedestrian level street lights are sort of these globes, and the light goes out in all directions, and it could be objectionable to, maybe come into your bedroom window or something like that. But I don't know if any of you guys traveled to Derby, but right now there's some new pedestrian lighting going in on the main street in Derby, and it's considered, they call it full cutoff, meaning all the light, like the light fixture kind of hangs down so that all the light shines down onto the sidewalk, and that, doesn't become an issue. So if we were to include pedestrian lighting here, that would be the style of lighting that would be used. As a matter of fact, if you use state money for that type of lighting, it's required because of light pollution. They don't want you to use the other style of lights where the light just goes off in all directions.
Yes.
Elm Street is very, very dark. And it needs lighting, it needed lighting for a long time, the street lights were taken away. If you wanted one, you had to pay to get it, everybody had to contribute, and so the street lights in some fashion need to be replaced.
So
Think about it when you.
We will.
So something that we mentioned at the very beginning of this information meeting, you don't want to have multiple projects going through. That'll cause a greater disturbance. In that light, you don't want to do one project and then do the lighting later. We would also like to see the lighting included now. It would be the best for everyone, if that's something everyone wants. I'm seeing a lot of nodding.
I'm just saying that within the project, you can put so that would take care of the problem. If you don't do this project, you don't get any, there's no light.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any questions online? No questions online. Any more questions in the room? Yes.
Very little question from like half hour ago, okay? Was what we were talking about.
Yes.
That's one of the issues. They don't really go over too well. Once they're installed, people don't appreciate the noise, yeah.
So,
Those were one of the things we hoped at one point in time, and actually, this is what I want, honestly. And I said, you know what, here's something, it would be annoying as hell, if you want people to slow down, but there is a detriment to network is what my thing. Because it does make noise, and it'll bother you in your house. And then there's one other small aspect, look around the ones that are along the curb line, right, and they exist, right? After a rain, what happens? There's like water in between every one of them.
Oh, yeah.
So if it's winter time, we do not end up with ice in every one of them. Doesn't that create a traffic jam? So we kind of nixed that whole idea for that.
So the question was, I'll paraphrase a lot. Do rumble strips along, if you put rumble strips along Elm Street, would they create noise? The answer is yes, potentially a lot of noise. And also the rumble strips will create icing issues if the water freezes, and honestly create a large safety hazard.
I mean, it's important to look at them.
You know, adding that pedestrian level lighting is also kind of giving a sense of place. They call it placemaking in the transportation engineering world, where, you know, you have trees and pedestrian lighting and, you know, just having that sense of, I think Rich called it earlier, enclosure.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You don't have this, that other photo with this just wide mass of pavement and nothing really going on either side. That gives a driver the sense of, you know, just kind of zooming through. A neighborhood, exactly. Right. Right.
It just looks more like.
Right.
Nothing else in the beautify the neighborhood. Nothing else.
And like someone brought up, it's a very historic. I mean, my house is almost.
Yeah, the houses are beautiful.
Yeah, they're clearly something to go over.
I mean, it's a whole. And it's historic. So,
That's what we would envision is to improve the livability, the neighborhood feel, if it's, you know, a place you'd want to walk.
So the question was, there are concerns about increased crime with greenways, but have there been any studies showing that greenways increase traffic, decrease crime?
I don't believe I've seen any studies that actually show that either, because in most cases there aren't, you know, there isn't that traffic there to begin with. But I, you know, I have seen a lot of studies about greenways and homes near greenways increasing in value, becoming more, you know, there's even a real estate agent in Massachusetts that sort of specializes on, you know, greenway properties near, you know, greenways. And you know, I was looking for a house a few years ago, and that was what I was looking for, was a house near a greenway. So, you know, it does, you know, create more of a, you know.
You didn't buy it, it's too expensive.
Just during COVID, they were all getting bought like that, so I didn't have a chance, but,
So before, we've been here a while, and we'll stay longer if you have questions. So please, I would ask if you have anybody else have a question before we wrap this up. One more question. Or comment.
is this going to affect the evaluation in my house?
Well, you know, to be very candid, if it improves the assessed value of your property, I would assume that. Does it necessarily improve the assessed value of your property? I truly don't know the answer to that. I can't, I won't comment. I won't. Are there any other questions?
Just there's just one more thing I'd like to add.
Sure.
During the design process, will you be communicating with like the gas company and anybody else who's gonna dig up the road 2 weeks after you finish this?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, let me just say this to you. Let me say this to you. No matter how much you tell these folks did, okay? And I've done it on every road that you can ask for. We have notified the utilities endlessly. No sooner do we get them that they want to do some work on it. Now, we do require for our town ordinance that if there's a disturbance, they must do it curb to curb. They can't do any little patches on roads that meet a certain criteria. You know, we gotta be fair and reasonable. Okay, but that is a requirement. However, we will tell them all beforehand. Hope and pray they pay attention, you know, and I'm being honest, I'm being totally honest.
That's required also during the design phase is to coordinate, reach out to all the utility companies, find out what their plans are for this roadway, make sure.
If they need upgrades, they should schedule that, before the project or within the project when we're excavating the roadway.
And it would make perfect sense for them to do it while this is dug up and they're boxing it out, where it's very easy, and now they don't have to do the excavation to get to where they need to be. But again, I'll be, once again, I'll tell you straight up, as hard as we tried, you can look at High Street, okay, and there's a bunch of others where we redid the road, we rebuilt it, we notified everybody, and then they come in and they say, well, we gotta do it, and now, if it's an emergency, we get it. You know, you got a gas leak, you gotta dig up the road, right? There's not even a question.
You take Center Street on Friday, and Monday morning, they were here to pick it up.
And honestly,
They knew it, we told them, we gave them 2 years in advance notice that any project gets done. They notified me last year that they had to replace the services to 6 houses on that road now. And I told them, you gotta pave it from this intersection to that intersection, curb to curb. It's funny,
they aren't too happy about that. They aren't jumping into doing it so quickly. But that's just the reality of it. So you asked the question, I'm just trying to answer it as honestly as I possibly can.
Yeah.
They smell it, they smell the grass.
Okay. Anything else, please, folks? Thank you all for coming tonight. Understand this is very early. We've heard from you, okay? Everybody's gonna kind of go back to the drawing board and come back with some other concepts. At the 30%, whenever, and that's not gonna be tomorrow, by the way. But when we get to the 30% design, we will meet again, okay? We'll let you all know, we'll meet again so we can have further discussion with what plan is being proposed and coming forward after trying to address some of your concerns. Thank you for your time.
And of course, if you have any other questions, we'll be up here, so you can walk up and ask us. Thank you.